My mother was a doctor, very practical. But she loved art. Loved how it could heal people in ways medicine couldn't. Garam surprised herself by continuing. I wanted to find a way to combine both, maybe work in arts administration for hospitals, or develop programs that bring art therapy to patients. That's beautiful, Bayal said, and she could hear genuine admiration in his voice. And you were close to your degree? 1 more year. Her hands clenched in her lap. I had already been accepted to a graduate program at SNU, Arts Management with a focus on healthcare applications. I was supposed to start next year. Supposed to, Bayal repeated quietly. Past tense. Well, Garam finally turned to look at him. That life is over now, isn't it? I'm Mrs. Kang now. I assume that comes with certain expectations. Bayal's expression shifted, something fierce moving behind his eyes. I need to make something clear, he said, turning in his seat to face her directly. Your life isn't over. Your stepmother might have sold you like you were property, and my father might have bought you like you were an asset on a balance sheet. But I don't see you that way, at all. Garam felt her eyes burning again with tears she refused to shed. You don't know me, she whispered. You don't know anything about me except what's in whatever file your father's people compiled. You're right. I don't know you. He leaned forward slightly, intense. But I'd like to. Not because you're my wife on paper, but because you're a person who had dreams stolen from her, and maybe I can help you get some of them back. Why? The question burst out before she could stop it. Why would you care? You're a chaebol heir. You could have married anyone. Someone from your world, someone suitable. Why accept this arrangement? Why help me? Bayal was quiet for a moment, his gaze dropping to his hands. Because, he said finally, I know what it's like to have your life planned without your input. To be told who you should be, what you should want, how you should live. My father has been doing that to me for 32 years. He looked up again, and Garam saw something raw in his expression. I fought him on a lot of things. My choice to study environmental engineering instead of business. My insistence on working in sustainable technology before joining the family company. Every major decision, he tried to control. But I had power, family name, education, connections. I had the luxury of fighting back. His voice dropped. You didn't have that luxury. Your stepmother and my father took away your choices when you were already vulnerable, already grieving, already powerless. And I thought, he paused, I thought at least I could make sure you ended up with someone who wouldn't make it worse. The car fell silent except for the soft sound of rain on the roof and the swish of windshield wipers. Garam felt something shifting inside her, not trust yet, but maybe the foundation for it. The smallest possibility that this nightmare might have an unexpected mercy hidden in it. Thank you, she said quietly, for going through with it. For being kind about it. Kindness should be the baseline, Bayal said firmly. Not something to thank someone for. You deserved so much better than this. Than me. Than any of this. The Genesis climbed into the hills of Seongbuk-dong, where Seoul's old money lived in quiet, elegant privacy. The houses here were hidden behind walls and trees, traditional architecture mixed with contemporary design, wealth displayed through understatement rather than ostentation. They turned through iron gates that opened automatically, following a curved driveway lined with carefully manicured gardens. The main house came into view, traditional Korean architecture blended seamlessly with modern glass and steel extensions. Beautiful but not cold, impressive without being intimidating. Home, Bayal said softly, and Garam couldn't tell if he was being ironic or hopeful. The driver opened her door, and she stepped out onto stones still wet from rain. The air here smelled cleaner than downtown pine and rain and earth. A woman in her 50s approached, dressed professionally but with a warm smile. Mrs. Kang, she said, bowing respectfully. Welcome. I'm Mrs. Park, the head housekeeper. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you, Garam managed, completely overwhelmed. Bayal appeared at her elbow, not touching but close enough that she felt his presence like an anchor. Let me show you to your rooms, he said gently. They entered through a foyer that managed to be grand without being overwhelming. Traditional Korean art on the walls, modern furniture that looked comfortable rather than decorative. Garam caught glimpses of other rooms as they walked, a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a formal dining room, a sitting room with enormous windows overlooking the gardens. Bial led her through the main house to a covered walkway that connected to a separate wing. This section was originally built for my grandmother, he explained as they walked. She valued her independence. After she passed, it's mostly been kept as guest quarters. But I thought, he paused at a door, I thought you might appreciate having space that's truly yours. He handed her the brass key. Garam unlocked the door with shaking hands and stepped into a space that made her breath catch. Sunlight poured through large windows, illuminating a sitting room that felt both sophisticated and comfortable. A plush sofa in deep blue faced the windows, with a coffee table holding fresh flowers. Built-in bookshelves lined one wall, already filled with books. But it was the artwork that made her freeze. Contemporary Korean pieces covered the walls, not expensive classics meant to impress, but thoughtful selections that spoke of strength and transformation. A modern interpretation of a phoenix rising. An abstract piece in blues and silvers that suggested water and healing. Traditional ink work reimagined through a contemporary lens. You said art history, Bial said quietly from behind her. I called a friend who owns a gallery. Ask what might speak to someone interested in how art reflects and changes society. These are all from contemporary Korean artists working in social change through their work. Garam moved closer to one piece of mixed media work showing traditional Korean women in modern settings, powerful and defiant. This is... She couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't process that a stranger, her husband, had cared enough to think about what might make her feel less alone. There's more, Bial said, gesturing toward another door. If you're ready, the bedroom was equally stunning. A large bed with crisp white linens, more art, windows overlooking a private section of the garden. But what caught her attention was the closet door standing open. Inside, mostly empty racks waited. Except for a few pieces hanging in the center, a selection of clothes in different styles, all in her size. I didn't want to presume what you'd like, Bial explained. I had a personal shopper bring a few options, different styles, different looks. Whatever feels like you, keep it. Whatever doesn't, we'll donate it or return it. And here, he handed her a card. This is for a personal shopper who works with several boutiques. Whatever you want, whatever you need. No limits, and no questions. I want you to have clothes that make you feel strong, that feel like yours, not what someone else thinks you should wear. Garam turned the card over in her hands, trying to process. The black dress Myung-ya had chosen felt like a costume now, something designed to erase her. And this, Bial continued, opening a drawer in the dresser, is for you. Inside lay a black credit card with her new name embossed on it. Kang Garam. It's connected to my personal account, not the family finances. Use it for whatever you need. Books, art supplies, food, clothes, anything. There are no limits and no one monitoring your purchases except the bank for fraud protection. I don't understand, Garam said, her voice breaking slightly. Why are you doing all this? Bial moved to stand near the window, giving her space, his hands in his pockets. Because you're not a possession, he said simply. Because the only way I could live with myself after going through with this arrangement was to make absolutely certain you knew that. You may be legally bound to me, but I want you to have every bit of freedom and autonomy I can give you within that constraint. He turned back to face her. I know it doesn't fix what was done to you. I know it doesn't make this okay. But maybe it makes it survivable. Maybe it gives you room to breathe while we figure out what comes next. What does come next? Garam asked. What are the rules? What do you expect from me? Bial was quiet for a moment, seeming to choose his words carefully. I expect you to live, he said finally. To continue your education if you want, I'll handle the administrative details. To explore Seoul, to make friends, to pursue your interests. To use this space however you need to. These rooms are yours alone. I won't enter without your permission. Ever? And your father? What does he expect? Appearances, Bial admitted. We'll need to attend some family functions together, the occasional business dinner, but I'll prepare you for those, tell you exactly what to expect. You'll never walk into a situation blind. Garam moved to the window, looking out at gardens that probably cost more to maintain than most people's annual salaries. In the distance, she could see Seoul sprawling out below the hills, millions of lives, millions of stories, and hers had just been rewritten completely. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "I don't know how to be someone's wife. I don't know how to exist in your world." She heard Bayal move closer, stopping a respectful distance away. "Then don't," he said gently. "Don't try to be someone's wife, just be Garam. Figure out who that is without your stepmother's voice in your head telling you you're not enough. I'm not asking you to be anything other than yourself." Garam turned to look at him, this stranger who was somehow being kinder than anyone had been to her in 3 years. "Can I ask you something? Anything? Do you have someone?" The words came out rushed. "A girlfriend? Someone you wanted to marry before your father forced this arrangement?" Bayal's expression flickered with something surprise, maybe, or sadness. "No," he said quietly. "There's no one. There was someone a few years ago, but my father disapproved. She was from an unsuitable family, working class. He made it clear that relationship had no future. I ended it rather than put her through what would have come." "So you sacrificed your happiness for someone else's sake," Garam said. "And now you're doing it again. For me, this isn't sacrifice," Bayal said firmly. "This is trying to make the best of an impossible situation that neither of us chose. And who knows? Maybe we'll become friends. Maybe we'll find a way to make this work that doesn't destroy either of us." A soft knock interrupted them. Mrs. Park appeared in the doorway. "Excuse me," she said warmly. "I've prepared lunch on the terrace if you're ready. Or I can bring it to Mrs. Kang's rooms if she'd prefer privacy." Bayal looked at Garam questioningly. "Your choice. Whatever feels comfortable." Garam knew she should probably say she wanted to be alone, should retreat into her beautiful cage and process everything. But the thought of sitting alone with her thoughts felt unbearable. "The terrace is fine," she heard herself say. The terrace overlooked the gardens, covered by a traditional-style pavilion that kept the light rain at bay. A table had been set with simple, elegant white dishes, fresh flowers, and food that made Garam's stomach suddenly remember she hadn't eaten since yesterday evening. Traditional Korean dishes had been prepared with obvious care. Perfectly seasoned japchae, grilled mackerel, kimchi that looked homemade, steaming rice, and several bench and side dishes. Nothing ostentatious, but everything beautiful. "Mrs. Park is an incredible cook," Bayal said, pulling out a chair for Garam. "She's been with my family since I was 15. One of the few people in this house I actually trust." Garam sat carefully, hyper-aware of her posture, her hands, every movement. Years of Myeonya's criticism had made her constantly self-conscious. Bayal settled across from her and began serving food onto his plate with casual ease. "Please," he said, noticing her hesitation, "eat whatever you'd like. You don't need to wait for me or follow any formal protocols. It's just us." Garam served herself small portions, her appetite warring with anxiety. They ate in silence for a few moments. The rain had picked up, drumming softly on the pavilion roof. In the garden, she could see raindrops hanging from maple leaves like liquid diamonds. "Tell me about yourself," Bayal said suddenly, setting down his chopsticks. "Not what's in the files my father's investigators compiled. Who you actually are. What you love. What makes you angry. What makes you laugh." The question was so unexpected, so genuinely curious, that Garam found herself looking up at him in surprise. "Why do you want to know?" "Because you're interesting," he said simply. "Because I'd rather know the real person than the paper version. Because if we're going to live in proximity, I'd like us to actually know each other." Garam set down her own chopsticks, considering. When was the last time someone had asked her about herself? Really asked, wanting to know rather than to judge? "I love art," she found herself saying slowly. "Not just looking at it, but understanding its context. How it reflects society. How it can change perspectives. There's this series I saw at the National Museum, Contemporary Pieces Reimagining Traditional Korean Tales Through a Feminist Lens. It made me think about how stories shape our understanding of ourselves." She paused, expecting to see boredom or polite tolerance. Instead, Bayal was leaning forward slightly, clearly interested. "Go on," he encouraged. "And I'm good with numbers," she continued, gaining confidence. "Really good. I can see patterns in data that other people miss. My professor said I had a gift for statistical analysis. But my stepmother always said it wasn't feminine to show it, that I should focus on being pretty and quiet, and she stopped abruptly, realizing she was sharing too much. And she was wrong, Bayal said firmly. Intelligence isn't gendered. Anyone who told you to hide your abilities was trying to control you, not help you. Garam felt something loosening in her chest. What else? Bayal asked. What makes you angry? Injustice, she said immediately. People who have power using it to hurt people who don't. Watching my stepmother destroy my father's company and blame it on bad luck. Seeing patients at my mother's hospital who couldn't afford treatment. Systems that protect the wealthy and abandon everyone else. Good, Bayal said, and there was approval in his voice. Anger at injustice means you have a moral compass. Don't let anyone tell you that's wrong. He picked up his teacup, studying her over the rim. What about happy things? What makes you laugh? Garam thought about it. It had been so long since she'd laughed freely. Bad puns, she admitted. The worse, the better. And those videos of animals doing ridiculous things. There's this one of a cat absolutely losing its mind over a ceiling fan that I've watched probably 50 times. Bayal smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes and created small crinkles at the corners. I'll make a note. Bad puns and ridiculous cat videos. What else should I know? I'm terrible at video games, Garam continued, surprising herself with how easy it was becoming to talk to him, like embarrassingly bad. My friends in university tried to teach me, and I somehow managed to make my character walk into walls for 20 minutes. Bayal laughed, a warm, genuine sound that seemed to surprise even him. Now that I would pay to see. What about you? Garam asked, emboldened by his laughter. Who are you when you're not the Kang Enterprises heir? Bayal's expression shifted, becoming more thoughtful. Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. I've spent so long being who my father wanted me to be, or rebelling against who my father wanted me to be, that I'm not sure I know who I am independent of that relationship. He set down his teacup. But I can tell you what I care about. Sustainable technology. I have a degree in environmental engineering, and I believe we're facing a climate crisis that requires immediate action. I've been working on integrating green technology into our manufacturing processes, which my father tolerates because it looks good for the company image. But you actually believe in it, Garam said passionately. I've seen projections for what happens if we don't make dramatic changes in the next decade. It's terrifying. He leaned back in his chair. What else? I like hiking. There's something about being in the mountains that makes the rest of the world quiet down. I read obsessively. Mostly non-fiction, but some literary fiction. And I have a probably unhealthy addiction to dark chocolate. Dark chocolate isn't unhealthy, Garam said. It has antioxidants. That's what I tell myself as I eat an entire bar in one sitting. A comfortable silence fell between them. Garam found herself relaxing incrementally, the knots in her shoulders loosening slightly. Can I ask you something serious? Bayal said after a moment. Garam nodded. Your mother. She died 3 years ago? The question should have hurt, but his tone was so gentle that it felt safe to answer. Leukemia, Garam said quietly. She fought for 18 months, underwent chemotherapy, radiation, everything, but it was aggressive. Toward the end, she was more herself in the moments between pain medications than during. I'm sorry, Bayal said, and it didn't sound like empty platitude. What was she like? No one had asked her that in 3 years. Myungya had forbidden talk of her mother, said it was dwelling on the past and making everyone uncomfortable. She was extraordinary, Garam said, feeling tears prick her eyes but not trying to stop them this time. A pediatric oncologist, she specialized in treating children with cancer. She used to say that healing wasn't just physical, that children needed hope and joy even in the darkest times. She smiled through her tears. She'd bring art supplies to the children's ward, set up easels and paint stations. She believed that creating something beautiful helped patients reconnect with life, remember they were more than their illness. She sounds remarkable, Bayal said softly. I see her in you, that same desire to heal, to make things better through combining practical support with beauty and meaning. Garam looked at him sharply. You got that from one conversation? I'm a good listener, he said simply. And you light up when you talk about your dreams. It's obvious they matter to you deeply. They finished lunch slowly, conversation flowing more easily than Garam would have thought possible that morning. Baal asked thoughtful questions about her studies, her favorite artists, her thoughts on various social issues. He shared his own passions, the technology projects he was developing, his frustration with corporate short-term thinking, his hopes for what their company could become. I have a video conference in about an hour, Baal said, eventually apologetic. Investors from Singapore, but you're welcome to explore the estate, the gardens, anywhere you'd like. This is your home now. You don't need permission to move through it. Okay, Garam said, thank you. For lunch. For everything today. Baal stood, then hesitated. Garam, I want you to know I meant what I said earlier about your education. If you want to continue your degree, complete your graduate program, I'll handle everything. Tuition, arrangements with the university, everything. Your stepmother tried to steal your future. Let me help you take it back. The offer was so generous, so unexpected, that Garam felt her carefully maintained composure cracking. Why? She whispered. Why are you being so kind to me? Baal moved closer, not quite touching but close enough that she could see the sincerity in his eyes. Because kindness should be the baseline, not the exception, he said firmly. Because you've been through hell, and I have the power to make things easier, so why wouldn't I? Because your stepmother spent years trying to convince you that you're worthless, and I can see that's a lie. A tear slipped down Garam's cheek. Then another. Hey, Baal said gently. It's okay. You're safe here. You're allowed to feel whatever you're feeling. Garam wiped at her tears with shaking hands. I'm not used to people being nice to me, without wanting something in return.